Okay, uh, Martin, you have control over the PowerPoint, yeah.
Oh, I do. Okay. Well, let me see where it is because I don't have it now since I
Oh,
went through all these other things. So let me. Okay, I've got.
okay, this is Lance Luke and Martin Pea. We're started later than scheduled. We had some technical issues, but
Maybe.
we're still trying to figure out this PowerPoint. And then once we do that, then we can start.
Yeah. Now I've lost all the. Um,
Because I don't have access to advance the slides.
okay. Let me. We're still having more technical difficulties. It seems like my shares is not sharing, or what I had.
So we got the PowerPoint up on the screen.
Do you see it? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, I see it.
The PowerPoint?
Yeah.
See, I don't see it.
Okay.
That's my problem. I don't see the thing to be able to advance them for you. And then you don't have the advancing feature you said.
Yeah, I have no privilege to advance it.
Okay, stop.
Okay, now there's no PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get them back the way we had before. So how's that? You see them now?
Yeah, I see it now. You have access to move it.
I believe so. Let me see. Start your intro and let's.
Try.
Uh, well, now I don't have the advancing feature,
Oh, okay.
so I don't have control of it. See if you do. Can you advance? No.
No, I've been trying.
Okay.
I have my
Oh,
mouse here.
okay.
Oh,
Looks like.
it just moved. Did you move it?
Oh, I just clicked on it. So yeah, go for it. I'll just keep clicking when you say move on.
Oh, okay. All right. Welcome everybody. We're having technical difficulties, but we're going to be talking about contractors' pay application, which is an invoice that's normally submitted every month by the contractor for different types of construction projects. It could be building your own house, it could be building a large 40-story condominium high rise building or a hotel or basically any kind of construction project, house renovation, that kind of thing. So let's move on. Next. This webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, LLC. All right, next we're going to go through a bunch of slides here. Next slide. Okay, so mastering the Pay app. Can you go back one? Okay, mastering the Pay app. The Pay app is actually called Payment Application, and navigating G702 and G703 workflows. And where I got the information, the title of G702 and 703, that's actually from the uh, Architectural Association, AIA, the American Institute of Architects, and that's the form that they use. Next slide. So the AIA G702 and 703, they're registered trademarks and copyrighted documents of the American Institute of Architects. So this is for information and education only. And unless you're a paid member or have a membership, you're not supposed to be using the forms. But I can talk about it as much as I can. So next. So there's a two-step system in this documentation. And by the way, I give this seminar to contractors, but homeowners and property managers, site managers, resident managers, attorneys, developers, construction managers, all could benefit from this information. So as much as I mainly direct this information towards contractors and builders and subcontractors, architects and engineers, the homeowner, property managers, realtors can also benefit because you can see the other side of this whole process. So let's break it down into two sections. G702 is actually the cover, it's an executive summary. It's mainly the what, the total amount requested for the period. So for example, the contractor's billing you $100,000 for work done in June, okay, last month. Okay, so the total amount requested for the period that's being billed is $100,000. Now, the detail, which is on G703, is the itemized evidence. So line items such as foundation, framing, roof, etc. So the G703 is the why, line by line proof of work completed. So one document is the total of what is due to the contractor, and the second document is all line items, and you add up each line item to arrive at the final number. And the final number on the detail sheet should match the total amount being billed for. So, in my example, $100,000, if you add up all the details, foundation, framing, and all that, it should add up to the same number as being billed. So, uh, if you add up all the numbers on the detailed sheet G703 and it comes to 98,000 and the contractor's billing for 100,000, something's wrong, right? The contractor missed something. Or vice versa, if the amount is 102,000, got to ask yourself, well, wait a minute, how come the total amount is 100,000 but the detail is 102? Something's wrong here. We better, scrutinize the math and look at the accounting and things like that. All right. So next.
Oh, sorry, we're stuck here a little bit.
Oh, okay. What happened? It got frozen?
Yeah, it's frozen a little bit. Yeah.
You
Mhm.
need to thaw it out?
Yeah, I'm trying to thaw it out. Yeah. There you go. Oops.
Okay. G702 is the top half of the document, or, it could be several pages, which is the top half. So the essential header data will have the project name and location, application number. So if it's the very first invoice, it should say, 01 or 001. Okay, and then subsequent invoices or pay requests will go down numerically. So the next month will be 002, right? And then the period two. So this is crucial for insurance and lien alignment and things like that. So it has to have the period. And that's the period that the contractor is billing for. So basically, the period noted on this pay application that I just got in July is for the period June 1st to June 30th, right? One whole month. Now, it's pretty normal, industry standard for the pay applications to be monthly. But sometimes, depending on how the contract reads, it may be billed, the contractor may bill twice a month, or he may bill every 2 months. So it all depends. The other important criteria for this document is that there should be a distribution list. Who gets a copy of this pay application is normally the contractor who's submitting it, the architect, and the owner or construction manager. Okay, there could be other people on the list, such as your construction lender, if you have one, or if it's a condo association, maybe the property manager or maybe the condo board. It all depends on what's agreed to up front, before the construction starts. And if there's a construction loan, the construction lender surely needs a copy because they're the ones that are going to be paying, cutting a check to the contractor or a third party intermediary, such as a property management company. All right, next.
Not frozen.
So this kind of gets into details, but I'm trying to make it very simple. So the contractor sum, which is the math here, we're establishing the baseline. What is the original contract sum? Line one. Line two is net change by change orders. And line three, total contract sum to date. So note that line two must only include fully executed change orders. So let's say the original contract is 500,000 on line one. Line two, net change by change orders. There's no change orders. Okay, so line three, total contract sum to date, right? So basically, in my example, the contract is billing for 100,000. So you have original contract sum 500,000, no change orders, and line three, total contract sum to date, uh, billing would be $100,000. Okay, so um, sometimes there's change orders that are listed. Let's say there's a change order for $20,000. If it's not approved, but the contractor bills for, it's not going to get paid if there's gatekeepers that are monitoring it, such as the construction manager or the architect. All right, next slide. Calculating the value of completion. So, like I mentioned before, the progress calculation, total completed and stored to date, less the retention, which is the safety net, and then the total earned less retention. So the retention is an amount, and it could be 5 or it could be 10% on a big contract. And the reason for that is you need some money in the kitty so that you don't pay the contractor 100% and there's no money left over for the contractor to come back and fix things. Also, the store to date is if the contractor buys materials and stores it on the job site, he's entitled to bill for those materials that are stored. Now, um, interesting information that if the contractor submits an invoice for $50,000 of materials, but it's not stored on the job site, industry standard says that the contractor doesn't get paid for that. Now, there's different scenarios where the contractor could be allowed to get paid for it if it could be verified that those materials were at the contractor's warehouse and it can be inventory. So there's certain factors that come into play, but some of my federal jobs as an inspector, the federal inspector, does not allow the contractor to get paid for materials stored somewhere else, not on the job site. Okay, so it gets pretty tricky depending on what the lender criteria is and things like that. All right, next slide. So the final number is the current payment due, which is the total amount less retention minus previous billing. But I don't want to confuse you guys. So the $100,000 uh, being billed for, okay, if we say that the project had a contract of 10% retention, which means that every month 10% of the total amount that's invoiced is going to be held back, right, in the reserve kitty. So in the example of the contractor submitting $100,000, he doesn't get paid $100,000. So the line item would be $100,000 worth of work was done, no change orders, right? So there's still $100,000, and then less 10%, which is a retention. So it'll be $100,000 less $10,000 of retention, right? 10%. So the bottom total that's due to the contractor is $90,000. So this is basically simple math. So the net check amount for the current period being billed would be $90,000. So if there's a construction lender involved, the check would be for $90,000, not $100,000. Okay. Um, if there's no construction lender and the developer is just paying cash, right? It'll still be $90,000 because it's $100,000 less 10,000, which is the retention. All right, next slide. So very important, G703 is the schedule of values. And the schedule of values is basically a spreadsheet of line items. It's an itemized map. It breaks the project into distinct work phases and building components. And it acts as a supporting receipt for the G702 cover page. So the format is actually a spreadsheet in columns, and the entire contract is broken down, and then percentages of each line item is being billed. For example, you have foundation, you have rough framing, which is carpentry, then you have roof, electrical, plumbing. I'm just trying to make it simple. On a high-rise building, there could be hundreds of line items on the schedule of values, but basically it's broken down into building components, and then the contractor would bill a percentage of each building component. So let's say the first month of construction, the grading was done and the forms were installed for the concrete slab. Okay, so that could be um, a small percentage of the entire foundation amount. So let's say the foundation concrete slab costs $50,000. So the contractor may bill $10,000 for grading to get the lot level and for form work, right? And then the form work could include installation of rebar and everything to get ready for the concrete pour. And then the next month, the contractor would pour the concrete slab, and then he would bill the balance. So the first month, $10,000, and then the second month he would bill $40,000 because a concrete slab was poured and completed. Okay, so basically, in simple terms, that's just one line item, and then you go by um, the next item. So in the first billing, there's probably zero amount for plumbing and electrical because that work didn't start yet. Okay, so it's mainly the concrete slab, and then once the slab is built, then your rough framing comes in. So then there's a percentage being billed every month for rough framing, and then the roof, and then you get to electrical, plumbing, and so forth. So basically, that's the whole procedure on the schedule of values. Just keep in mind that every month there's a pay application, but it's basically the contractor's invoice that's submitted to whoever's going to be checking and whoever's going to be paying. And I'll give you an example on a project that I worked on in Chinatown. The contractor was billing every month about $1.2 million. So the schedule of values line item, multiple pages. I mean, it was the whole pay application package probably was 150 pages. I mean, it was pretty long because it had backups of different things, copies of invoices, paid invoices for different materials that were bought, and things like that. So it could be something very simple on one single family house being built. Your invoice could be, maybe 4 or 5 pages. But then on a big high rise building, each invoice could be every month 200 pages or more. Okay, so it can get very technical very fast. All right, next slide. So there's different columns. So column C, scheduled value. So this is where the budget actually is. So it shows the total agreed value for each task, like concrete, HVAC. And then what's critical is the total of column C must match the G702 contract sum. So everything has to match. There's double checks here and there. And that's the way that form was built. So it's not like you just keep paying and there's no back check. So we always look at what the total contract sum was. And in my example, is 500,000. So as you keep going, every month the contractor bills and gets paid. And at the end, if the owner ended up paying 520,000, well, how can it be unless there's an explanation? And the explanation was, yeah, there was $20,000 change order for upgraded windows. Okay, so although the original contract amount was 500,000, it got changed to 520,000 because of the approved change order. So basically, that's how things are. It has to be approved by both parties, otherwise, no one's going to pay, or it won't be approved for payment, and then it'll get kicked back. So if there's a construction loan with a construction lender, there's going to be a notation that that amount is not going to be paid unless the lender is provided with documentation that's approved by both parties as to the $20,000 change order. Okay, next. And then there's column D and E, work completed. This is a tracking progress. Column D, value completed in the previous periods, value completed in the current period, column E. And then the benefit, it prevents overbilling and tracks monthly velocity. So what happens in each line item, it can be easily seen, what was completed previously and what's being completed now. So that prevents overbilling. So if there was no, well, how much was paid in the past for a line item, it would be hard to calculate whether that line item amount was overbilled. So let's take the concrete slab foundation at $50,000. Okay, so 1 month was billed 40,000, another month was billed 50,000. Okay, so in column D, it would show $50,000, which is the total amount. So the next month, if that line item shows $5,000 being billed, then the question is, well, wait a minute, you already got paid in full for the concrete slab. Why are you billing another $5,000? And there has to be a reasonable answer, right? Oh, um, the owner wanted an additional storage room here, so we have to add uh, more concrete slab to that. Oh, okay, so that's fine. Was it an approved change order, right? So sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes no. And that's where you got to bring out the magnifying glass and ask questions as to, well, who approved this? Oh, well, the owner came by one day and said he needed this bigger, so we just did it. All right, that's fine and good, but where's their backup documentation? Did the owner, you have a signed change order for that, or some kind of email verification that the owner approved that and actually agreed to the price? Now, there's cases where the owner said, "Yeah, do it," and he agreed to it, but come to find out, he never agreed to the cost, right? So maybe the owner thought it was going to be an additional $2,000, but in the contractor's mind, it was 5,000. So there may be an issue there, right? So I would not approve $5,000 until I had full documentation that the owner actually approved the $5,000 and approved the the work being done. What kind of work was it? And sometimes it gets convoluted because I would ask the contractor, well, wait a minute, it doesn't cost no $5,000 for this extension for this storage room because just a small concrete slab. And then the contractor say, oh, well, wait a minute, that amount, $5,000, not only for the concrete slab, but it's to actually build the storage room. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, that makes sense, but it has to be fully explained. All right. Next slide. So there's column F, which is stored materials, and I mentioned before for inventory billing, billing for materials on site but not yet installed is totally acceptable because better to have um, your building materials on site, right? Then we know it's there rather than, well, what happened here? Oh, well, we put in an order, but it's not coming for another month. Oh, that's not too good. So the requirements are for invoices, stored material, insurance, or some kind of photographic proof of the material. So it's better for me as a construction manager inspector to see materials actually on the job site. I rarely go to the contractor's warehouse or to the dock to do inventory. Okay. In some cases where it's a rush, maybe I have to go to the warehouse and take inventory of a lot of different plumbing parts and things like that. So, but that's kind of rare. All right, next slide. So let's talk about the retention, which is normally known as retainage or retention, the withholding strategy. So the reason for that is so that the contractor doesn't get paid 100% when there's different punch list items to be completed. So typically it's excuse me, 5 to 10% of the entire contract amount for the project as security to make sure that everything's finished. So, and it's calculated every month. So no matter how much is being billed every month on the pay application, if the retention is 10%, 10% is held back from the total amount being billed for. So, like I mentioned before, the total amount being billed is $100,000. Retention is 10%, so you withhold $10,000. So that actually doesn't get paid to the contractor until the tail end. The, Probably the last payment to the contractor is all the retention that was held back. And there's a reason for that. And when is a retention going to be released? So that has to be specified in the contract. So some contractors call for substantial completion is when the retention is paid. Some contractors have the project closeout, which means that all the punch list items are completed before the retention. Okay, so it depends on what was agreed to in the beginning. So that's why it's very critical that in the contract negotiations, all these things are to be addressed. Otherwise, there's going to be huge confusion and arguments at the tail end. Contractor wants to get paid, but was that agreed to in the beginning? All right, next slide. Why pay apps get rejected? Top three errors. The math doesn't add up. You got to cross check things and then saying, well, how come the contractor's billing for 102,000 on the spreadsheet, but then on the invoice it says 100,000. Something doesn't make sense. There's like erroneous information somewhere, or there's the billing on the sheet for unapproved change orders. So the contractor's billing for change orders that maybe were verbally approved, but there's nothing in writing. So I would reject that pay application, or there's missing information or missing things. So every pay application, there has to be a notarized signature, right? But it depends on um, if there's a construction loan and the lender requires it or not. Some lenders don't, so that the notary is not needed. So normally there's notarized, authorized signature, and then there's also lien releases that are submitted also. So sometimes it gets rejected where there's a missing signature or there's a missing page or something is missing or something um, is not correct on the math. Okay, next slide. So here's kind of an idea of how this whole process works. So on every given project, there's subcontractors, right? So the subcontractor submits their invoice to the general contractor, and the general contractor reviews it. And then after that, let's say everything's okay, then the general contractor then submits the pay application to the architect or consultant. It could be a construction manager for certification. Okay, and then when everything is okay, and then the architect would submit the pay application to the owner for funding or to get paid. So sometimes there's a delay between subcontractors submitting their invoice to the general contractor, or there's a delay when the general contractor gets all the paperwork to submit to the architect or construction manager. And then after that, there could be a delay on the contractor, I mean, on the architect submitting the pay application after the architect approves it for the to the owner. okay, to get paid. So this whole process may take 1 or 2 months. Okay, so let's say that the general contractor submits their pay application to the architect. The architect, in turn, has to call up the engineers to go to the project site with the architect, or maybe without, to go over the line items that were completed. And that may take a week, 2 weeks, or even longer. So by the time the owner gets it, it may be a month later. Okay, so there's a lot of moving parts in all this thing. And let's say that there's no errors in the general contractor's pay application. Well, it could go pretty smoothly, right? As far as the amounts. But when the architect gets it or the construction manager gets it, and then we have to do on-site inspection to verify items for completion. If some items aren't complete as stated or as billed for, then we have to make an adjustment. So I'll give you an example. There was a situation where the contractor billed for elevator at 60% complete. But when I went to the job site, the elevator wasn't even 30% complete. And I questioned that, and the response was, oh, well, we're billing for materials that are that were ordered, but we didn't get it yet. So I said, well, where's the materials? And they said, well, it's ordered, but we didn't receive it yet. So I said, you can't you can't do that. It's unacceptable. So I had to scratch out the line item for 60%, whatever the amount was, and then change it to 40%. So in other words, I only approved 40%. And of course, that affected everything else, the total amount being billed for, and then also the retention amount. So it gets kind of messy when things like that happen. So, next slide. So, what are the best practices for success? Well, submission tip to the contractor, right? Submit and a draft. Submit a draft of what you're going to bill for, and then um, it could be reviewed, and then if it's okay, then submit the final. Most people don't do that, but I recommend at least a discussion. So documentation, attach clear photos for every invoice. And when I work on concrete spalling repair, the contractor not only has to submit photos, but they have to submit drawn diagram, and then measurements of per square foot, um, as to what work was done. And so all that is documentation, and it's added to the pay application. That's why uh, it's not only 20 pages, and it could be 50 pages, 100, 150 pages, because there's backup documentation for all work done during the 30-day period, previous period that was being billed for. And precision, you don't round numbers. It has to be pretty consistent uh, to the penny, right? Unless initially the contractor agreed to round numbers in the contract, but I don't normally agree to that. It has to be to the penny. So if the contractor had to go to Home Depot and buy something, and that item was $10.99, right? That's the amount of the invoice, $10.99. It's not billed as $11. Okay? And there's a reason for that, because everything adds up. If they start rounding things, it gets to be kind of confusing. All right, next slide. All right, so hopefully I didn't confuse too many people. I know this is like a boring subject. It kind of gets technical, and if you if you want to see the actual forms, you can go online and do a Google search and see what the actual form looks like. I didn't get permission from the AIA office to use the form, so that's why I didn't show it to you because it's copyrighted. All right, so what you missed, we've given previous webinars on whole different subjects. Next slide. We have a website you can go to. We have a whole bunch of other webinars coming up. So next. And then if you go to our website, askbuildingexpert.com, we have other websites that you can look at for different topics of interest. We also have a National Building Expert blog. Next slide. And then we have books. Next slide. Well, here's a topics of some of our books. I'm pretty sure you can get it free. I haven't been to the website lately, so um, I'll probably check it out today. All right, next. So on the books, if it's free, I mean, download it and you can read it later. At least you have it, so you don't have to pay the $14.95 to Amazon. Um, we're offering it for you to just share our information and all that. So we're at the Q&A time now. So I'd like to bring Martin back. I know he couldn't sleep during this whole webinar because he had to advance the slides. There was a glitch. I normally control the slides, but somehow we couldn't. I couldn't even share it. So Martin had double and triple duty today. So all right, Martin. Any questions or comments?
No, we survived our little technical glitches, but it was that was good. Still the usual educational information, a little bit more technical for what I'm used to, but looks like a lot of things that contractors need to keep up with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the questions, well, it looks like the questions that have come in, you probably got an audience or so of contractors out there because the questions sure sound more like something from contractor type. So let me get you the first question. What happens if the architect disagrees with my percentage in column E?
Well, then normally there's a discussion between the architect and the contractor as to you know why there's a disagreement. Let's hear it from the architect. So sometimes um, I would get involved as a construction manager or the inspector um, if something is not um, constructed properly, but the contractor's billing for that. That's one reason why there would be a disagreement. Okay, so let's say the contractor is billing $20,000 for the roof, but I did my inspection. I go, hey, you didn't even install this roof correctly. I'm not agreeing to pay for that. So in that case, there's a disagreement because in my mind, why are we paying for poor workmanship? So once you agree to pay that, then what happens? The contractor may forget to fix it, or he may deliberately not fix it and say, well, I got paid for it already, so I don't need to go back and do anything. So um, we have to be very strict. And the time to be strict is like now, not like later. Oh, well, we'll wait until next month to deal with that, or wait until the project's completed and then we'll bring it up. So the best time to bring things up is now, right? And then you have a discussion with the contractor because what happens is um, you have a problem, a workmanship issue, a construction defect, and you don't bring it up, and the same defect continues and continues and month after month. So you want to bring it up sooner than later so we can address the problem. So, in other words, I'm inspecting painting, and on the first floor, they're building for it, and it's a 40-story high rise building. I want to address the problem now rather than at floor 20, where I said, you know what, I don't like you guys painting. I never liked it from day one. Oh, well, we painted 20 floors already. We're not going to go back and repaint it. So, um, at least if you catch it in the beginning, right, at floor one, the contractor would be more agreeable to go and fix it rather than 20 floors later, right? And it's not fair to the contractor, too, to say, well, I meant to tell you 20 floors ago that your painting sucked, but uh, I'm bringing it up now. I want you to go redo it. Well, geez, they're on floor 21 now, right? So you gotta be fair. You can't hold back things. And I listen to what the contractor has to say, right? And try to come up with some kind of workable solution. So, in answer to the question, um, discuss it with the architect and see what the reason why. The architect may have an issue with the percentages, right? In the architect's mind, you didn't finish 20%. You only finish 15%, and you're billing for 20, right? So that may be the reason. So you may have to change your number as a contractor. Now, you're billing for work that was done already. You're not billing for, oh, by the time I get paid, 15% of the work is being done, will be done. So that's why I'm billing for 15% and not 10. Well, no, that doesn't cut it. You can't bill in advance. You have to bill for work that you already did. We're not paying you for work in the future. We're paying you for work that you completed already, right? So once they understand that, then we have less problems in the future.
Very good, Lance. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, next question must be from another contractor type out there is asking, can I bill for a change order if I only have verbal approval?
The answer is no. If we use the correct contract language, right, it specifically says that change orders have to be in writing and approved by both parties. So I've gotten change orders where it was submitted and the contractor signed it, but the owner never signed it. And so in that case, would it get approved? No, it shouldn't because you need both the owner and the contractor to sign it. Okay, so um, unless there's an email, right, or some kind of verification that the owner agreed to it, but somehow he couldn't actually sign the official document, right? So let's say the contractor is hiking in Mount Everest and he doesn't have access to a computer with a computer printer, right? But he can still text. So if he texts back confirmation that yes, I approve this at this amount, then we can use that as approval. And then when he gets back to a computer with a printer, he can actually send the signed document. So those are rare situations, though. So, and I tell the contractors, you're not going to get paid unless we see an official change order signed by both parties. So and I tell them that up front so they know. So later on, if they argue, so remember the conversation we had before you started the job about the change orders. So in some most cases there is change orders because there's additional things that got to be done. So that's probably something to be expected.
Very good, Lance. Sounds like yeah, it should be a SOP to make sure those change orders get the right approvals. And I was just thinking the approvals should include the details of, like you say, cost or whatever, so that there's no confusion on those things, depending on what's been agreed on. So
Yeah,
very
you brought up a good point. So the change order form shouldn't just say $5,000 for concrete slab for new storage room. It should be specific as to what's included
good.
and the time period when it's going to be done and things like that. So the more detailed makes it easier for everybody. Because if I see $5,000 for a concrete slab that's for a small closet, I'm going, wait a minute, that's like way too much.
Mm,
So then I kick it back, and the contractor says, oh, well, it's for us to do carpentry, painting, and all that for the storage area, the closet. Oh, well, okay, well, that makes sense. But, next time write it in
mm,
to make it easier so that it doesn't get kicked back. So once they submit the pay application and it gets kicked back, um, I either can deduct an amount and submit it for payment or give the contractor time to correct it and submit a revised pay application.
yeah,
Okay, but I mean, all that takes time, right? So you are talking another 2 or 3 week delay.
yeah,
And so when the contractor says, "Oh, how come I didn't get paid? I normally get paid, a week after I submit my pay application." Well, because you screwed up. It wasn't detailed enough, or you made some math errors or whatever. So, please be careful and do a good job so that it doesn't get kicked back. Because anytime it get kicked back, there's delays, right? So you never know. And then by the time the revised pay application is submitted to the lender, the guy at the bank that normally cuts the check, he's on vacation now. So any number of things could go wrong with getting payment on time.
yeah. Good clarification. It just made me think about an old saying I used to hear from probably my folks that would always tell me, time is money. So in this case, it really does make a difference on getting the money or not getting the money when you need it. So good point. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Next question that's come up here from must be another contractor type is how do I handle different retainage rates for labor versus materials?
Well, you agree. You should agree to the percentage amount of retention upfront in the contract. So there shouldn't be like a separate um, retention amount for labor versus material. It should be all lumped together. So when you're billing 100,000 and it's 10%, it's a 10% retention. It gets too confusing where you try and separate it and bill one number for labor and another number for materials. That's really not how the farm is set up to handle all that. So that's just extra work. So somehow figure it out what makes sense for you and stick to one number.
Okay, good answer, Lance. Okay, the next looks like another uh, maybe accountant kind of question is should I include sales tax and shipping in the stored materials column?
Well, My response is, do you want to get paid for that or not? Right? So if you want to get reimbursed, yeah, include that. So your cost of doing business, right? If you have to pay shipping costs for a certain item, um, and taxes, that's included and billed to the owner, unless, right, unless you knew about having to order the certain product and you forgot, and now you need it on the job site, and now you got to pay extra for shipping to get it fast because you need it. Well, that should be on you because you screwed up. You didn't order it on time, right? But if you order things in a timely manner, right, the cost should be billed to the owner. Now, there's certain cases where, remember, we had the pandemic and all of a sudden all the materials are, the cost is getting increased, and the owner kept saying, hey, I already signed the contract, you guys are ripping me off, you can't keep increasing the price once I agree to it. But the answer is, well, that was beyond the contractor's control, right? And I had letters from different companies saying there's a 15% increase on paint now. And we didn't we didn't buy the paint yet. So there's extra costs. So um, the explanation to the owner was, this is what's happening. And it was happening, all over the entire United States and the world. Some building products aren't coming from the US, it's coming from different other countries. And so they had uh, the pandemic issue. We had a supply issue. I mean, I was telling my clients, hey, you know, pay for the increase. You're lucky you can even get the materials, because I've heard cases where they can't even get the lumber. We're short. So, oh, how come no one's working on my house? Well, they can't because we don't have the lumber. That's why. Oh, when is it coming? Shouldn't you guys have ordered it all up front? No, that doesn't really happen that way, right? You order it as you need it. So there's some long lead times, and in some cases, uh, the contractor's scrambling to get materials that he thought he could buy from one place, but they didn't have it, so he had to go to another source. And you go to another source, and it's a little more expensive. So um, yeah, it was rough. Even the government was going through that too.
Well, yeah, that's good clarification of that. And I was just thinking as you were saying, talking about that, gee, the contractors and builders and owners must be facing the same problem now with all this supply issues that the oil situation created, where you know the the supply chain was kind of um, ending up short and all the different things. So I just thought, yeah, it must be same kind of situation going on right now with the industry too. Yeah. So interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and then I guess we get one more question here, and it is, how do I use these forms, which I'm assuming are the G703, 702, for unit price contracts? I'm not sure what that means, but
Well, there's different ways that a contractor can bill, and there's like a lump sum, which is okay. I'll build your house for 500,000, and then there's a cost plus. So whatever, like if I'm the contractor, whatever it costs me to build your house, I'm going to build your house plus 15%, which is my overhead and profit. Okay, that's kind of an unknown because you don't know what the final number is. The lump sum or guaranteed max is a known quantity, a known number. So it's 500,000. The unit price could be um, 500,000 too, broken down by how much certain things cost. So, for instance, if the contractor gives you a quote, all right, here's my unit costs. I can build your house, for X amount of dollars, and it's going to be by these categories. So total electrical is $30,000. Plumbing total 35,000. These are unit costs, right? Per um, line item, and then you could break it down even further by unit costs for kitchen cabinetry. I plug in $18,000 for kitchen cabinetry. That's a unit cost for kitchen cabinets. 6,000 for bath cabinets. For your floor tile, $30,000. So these are specific unit costs. So um, using the form, it could apply to unit costs also, but you got to be clear that the bottom line is going to be the same. So if you add all the unit costs and the total is 500,000, then it's a lot easier, right? But um, be careful how you're going to bill, because if you're billing unit costs, you just got to bill by you add the material and labor, and then whatever percentage completion, you're going to be billing for that. So it basically all comes out in the wash at the end, because the total amount is whatever was agreed to in the contract. Yeah.
Oh,
So got any other questions or comments?
well, I just kind of had a question. I don't have any more on our from our audience, but as far as this unit cost versus the lump sum, are there different projects where that would make a difference, to use that versus the lump sum, or is it just, that
Well,
would,
sometimes it could be the owner might say, "Well, what's all my unit costs?" And it becomes a lump sum,
oh, yeah.
right? So it just depends how you break things up. There's
Mm,
also, like, in lieu of unit cost, it's a square footage cost. So a contractor may say, "You want me to build your single family home? I'll build a new home for you. It's going to be $650 a square foot, turnkey," and that's a square foot cost, right? And everything's lumped into one.
But like you say, in the end, I mean, there's still just one lump sum cost. It's just a matter of how they allocate the pieces of the pricing, I
Yeah,
guess.
well, that's why up front you need to know what type of contract you're gonna agree to, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah.
So if you agree to um, a cost plus, what are you agreeing to, right?
Mm.
I wouldn't sign a cost plus contract,
Oh, yeah.
because unless the contractor can tell me what the total is going to be, right? But it's too risky. Like, even a design build contract where you're designing the building as you go, you don't know what the final number is, right?
Oh. Mm.
So it gets risky. Like, I'll give you an example: the famous Honolulu Rail. Okay, that's a design build. So how do we know what the cost is going to be? Some areas you don't, because they're designing it as you go, right? So there's a fault to that method. Now, the entire rail project is not a design build, but certain portions are, and so it's risky because you don't know what the final number is, right? So I wouldn't have a new house built under a design build, because it's almost like you have to have an open checkbook.
Mm.
I need to know, right? I'm going to be spending 850,000. That's my budget. A design build, unless the contractor can guarantee he's going to meet that budget, then I don't want to sign. I'd rather sign a lump sum guaranteed max. You're going to build my house turnkey for me, ready to move in, and I'm going to pay you 850,000. I'm not going to make any changes. There's no change orders. That's my budget.
Okay. So
Yeah.
based on that design build concept, is that how the government does most of their projects?
Yeah, I mean, some of the projects is like that, and it's so lame. Sorry to say, um, the management uh, process, the procurement, and all that. Sometimes there's too much red tape, and then sometimes it's just poor oversight,
Mm.
and no one knows what's going on. And then eventually, there's construction defects, problems, and then who ends up paying? Where does the money come from anyway to build government projects, right? A hospital, the convention center, for example, the money is coming from the taxpayers. So not only to build something new, if it gets screwed up and there's no recourse against the contractor, the taxpayers end up paying double, right? So it just becomes a huge problem. But I gave some webinars about those kind of things before, so I don't want to
Good,
take up the time
good, good
ranting about
reminder.
that. I gave my rant already, but don't get me going.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lance. That's all. That's all I get. I have asked enough questions already.
Okay, cool. Thank you everybody for attending. Apologize for our technical difficulties. We started late, but we are able to actually get it done. So um, hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar. Aloha, mahalo. See you later.